Joining me live now from Mar-a-Lago, President Trump's National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster. General, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be with you.
The Trump administration seems to be sending mixed signals this weekend. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley says that getting rid of Assad is a priority. On the other hand, Secretary of State Tillerson says that first we have to get rid of ISIS, destroy ISIS. Assad can wait. So which is it? How does the president see this playing out in Syria?
Well, both Secretary Tillerson and Ambassador Haley are right about this. I mean, it's what we really need to do, and what everyone who's involved in this conflict needs to do, is to do everything they can to resolve this civil war, to halt this humanitarian catastrophe, this political catastrophe, not only in Syria, but a catastrophe that is affecting the greater Middle East, it's affecting Europe, and it's a threat to the American people as well. And so to do that, what's required is some kind of a political solution to that very complex problem. And what Ambassador Haley pointed out is it's very difficult to understand how a political solution could result from a continuation of the Assad regime. Now, we're not saying that we are the ones who are going to affect that change. What we're saying is other countries have to ask themselves some hard questions. Russia should ask themselves, what are we doing here? Why are we supporting this murderous regime that is committing mass murder of its own population and using the most heinous weapons available? So I think that while people are really anxious to find inconsistencies in those statements, they are, in fact, very consistent in terms of what is the ultimate political objective in Syria.
I understand that that's the ultimate political objective, but Secretary Tillerson said destroying ISIS must come first. You don't seem to be saying that.
No, that's exactly what we're saying. We have seen what ISIS does, right? How ISIS brutalizes people, how ISIS has now established control of territory and populations and resources and grown then in strength in its threat to all civilized peoples. So we are conducting very effective operations alongside our partners in Syria and in Iraq to defeat ISIS, to destroy ISIS and reestablish control of that territory, control of those populations, protect those populations, allow refugees to come back, begin reconstruction,
sir,
and allow the resources.
I'm just trying to clear this up. Is it two separate tracks at the same time, or does ISIS have to happen first before we and the international community move to depose Assad?
Well, I think, as you saw with the strike, that there has to be a degree of simultaneous activity as well as a sequencing of the defeat of ISIS first. What you have in Syria is a very destructive cycle of violence, perpetuated by ISIS, obviously, but also by this regime and their Iranian and Russian sponsors. And so what we have to be able to do is to work together with our allies and partners to help resolve this conflict. And the resolution of the conflict will entail each of the elements that you're talking about, Chris. The defeat of ISIS, and then also it has to be a significant change in the nature of the Assad regime and its behavior in particular.
Well, let me ask you a question, sir, which may clarify this, because as Kristen Fisher reported, Syrian warplanes are already using that same base that you and the U.S. forces hit Thursday night, and they are reportedly again bombing that same town in northern Syria, but only this time with conventional weapons, not chemical. The question is, if Assad continues killing babies only with conventional weapons, not chemical, will this president stop that, or will President Trump say no, that he's going to do nothing, stand aside?
Well, I think what's important to remember is our objective was to deter the continued use, because it's been a pattern of use of chemical weapons by the Assad regime in his mass murder attacks against innocent civilians. That was the objective. And I think Ambassador Haley, Secretary Tillerson, everyone has confirmed that we're prepared to do more. In fact, we were prepared to do more two days ago as well. And so what's significant about this strike is not that it was meant to take out the Syrian regime's capacity or ability to commit mass murder of its own people, but it was to be a very strong signal to Assad and his sponsors that the United States cannot stand idly by as he is murdering innocent civilians. What was a red line in 2013? And so So that was the important objective to keep in mind here.
But, sir,
the other significant thing about this, though,
he's continuing the mass murder. So the question is, if he uses conventional weapons, is President Trump prepared to stop him from using conventional weapons to slaughter innocent civilians?
Well, I think with this president, what we have is someone who is helping us understand and helping us provide him with an assessment of what is the degree of agency and control we have over this very complex situation. The president has, in response to a mass murder attack, acted decisively. And if they're using that airfield again, that's not the objective, was to take out that airfield forever. The objective was to send a very strong political message to Assad. And this is very significant, I think, because I think everyone should realize this is the first time that the United States has acted directly against the Assad regime. And that should be a strong message to Assad and to his sponsors who are enabling his campaign of mass murder against his own civilians.
So there is the possibility that President Trump, you're saying, leaving it wide open, that he will act against President Assad if he goes against civilians no matter what weapon he uses.
Well, the president will make whatever decision he thinks is in the best interest of the American people. And it'll be our job to provide him with options based on how we see this conflict evolve in this period of time before us, after the strike. And what we're doing now is working with our partners, our allies, everyone except Russia and Iran, who are somehow continue to think that it's okay to be aligned with this murderous regime. We're working with our partners and allies to magnify the effects of this strike and then to build momentum toward ultimately resolving this civil war, defeating ISIS, and bringing the peace and security back to this region and to the Syrian people.
Let me bring in, you mentioned Russia. Russia has sent, as Kristen Fisher reported, has sent a warship into the Mediterranean. And over the weekend, the Prime Minister of Russia, Medvedev, wrote, "The U.S. is, quote, on the verge of a military clash with Russia." Sir, what are we prepared to do if Russia defends its interests in Syria?
Well, this is part of the problem in Syria, is Russia's sponsorship for this murderous regime. And so we would want to appeal rationally to Russia. This is a great opportunity for the Russian leadership to reevaluate what they're doing, why they are supporting a regime that is committing mass murder against its own people. And so Russia could be part of the solution. Right now, I think everyone in the world sees Russia as part of the problem.
Was Russia involved? Do we have evidence that they were involved in the chemical attack?
Well, I think what we should do is ask Russia, how could it be, if you have advisors at that airfield, that you didn't know that the Syrian Air Force was preparing and executing a mass murder attack with chemical weapons? I think we ought to ask them that question.
President Trump, as you well know, talked during the campaign and since about trying to establish an alliance with Vladimir Putin, and he indicated that there was some kind of moral equivalence between the two nations. Here he is.
Will I get along with him? I have no idea. It's very possible
He's a killer,
I
though.
won't.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
General, what is our relationship with Russia and Putin today?
Well, today it can be whatever the Russians want it to be. Do they want it to be a relationship of competition and potential conflict? I don't see how that's in Russian interests. Or do they want it to be a relationship in which we can find areas of cooperation that are in our mutual interest? How is it in anyone's interest that this conflict in Syria and this catastrophe in the greater Middle East continue? And they can be part of the solution, or they can continue what has been really a very sophisticated campaign of subversion against Western interests, and a campaign of subversion and intervention on behalf of a murderous regime in the Middle East. And so I think this is what our Secretary of State will be exploring with the Russian leadership this week. And the President is determined to do everything he can to advance American interests. And if that entails working with others to come to solutions in the world that enhance our security, the President will do that. And it's really now up to the Russian leadership to reevaluate what are they doing in the Middle East.
I want to turn, this all overshadowed the fact that the missile strike happened in the midst of a summit between President Trump and Chinese President Xi. And during dinner, the president told President Xi about the attack. Did President Xi give any indication that he now takes President Trump's statement more seriously, that if China doesn't act to stop North Korea's nuclear program, that he, President Trump, will? Did you get a sense that they were taking that more seriously? And also, we learned this morning that a U.S. carrier strike force is on its way to the Korean Peninsula. Why?
Well, it is such a privilege to be part of this national security team and help enable this team for the president as national security advisor. It's really extraordinary, I think, the degree of concurrent activity that was going on this week, and nobody really even broke a sweat over it. I mean, we have extraordinarily competent people in these positions who are providing the president with options, and then have this amazing military that we have that can execute those decisions of the president flawlessly. And so it was I think, maybe a bit surprising to the guests here about how really no one was even stressed out or anything about the need to conduct this operation in the wake of this murderous attack. And I think the summit was extremely successful because it met the first objective, which is to allow the president and Premier Xi to build a relationship that they can use to identify areas of cooperation and to advance really our mutual interests, but American interests in particular.
And I'm running out of time, so I'm going to have to ask you sort of lightning round, quick questions, quick answers. Why the carrier strike force to the Korean Peninsula?
Well, it's prudent to do it, isn't it? I mean, North Korea has been engaged in a pattern of provocative behavior. This is a rogue regime that is now a nuclear-capable regime. And President Xi and President Trump agreed that that is unacceptable, that what must happen is the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And so the president has asked us to be prepared to give him a full range of options to remove that threat to the American people and to our allies and partners in the region.
Finally, and you've got China, you've got Syria, you've got Russia, but a lot of people in Washington are talking about relations inside the White House. Welcome to the D.C. politics, General McMaster. Why did you push for Steve Bannon to be taken off the Principals Committee of the National Security Council?
Well, this is not as significant as it appears, I think. But I think what the president was doing was making clear that he is going to, in terms of permanent membership of the National Security Council, have those permanent members who are there for every meeting, every official meeting of the National Security Council, to be those who will give him their advice on the long-term interests of the American people. And so, really, though, it depends. The president can get advice from anybody he wants, and he does that. He asks a broad range of people who he trusts, and Steve Bannon's one of them, about policy decisions and about the risks and opportunities involved with each of these. And so that none of that has changed.
But do you think it was inappropriate to have a political advisor in that role?
Well, no, I think what is appropriate is to have in that role whoever the president wants in that role, and Steve Bannon provides the president with advice on a broad range of issues and will continue to do so.
General McMaster, thank you. We covered a long range of issues today. Thank you for your time, sir, and we'll follow what happens next in Syria and around the world.
Thanks, Chris. It was a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.